The following are thoughts synthesized from a series of podcasts I published 4 years ago, titled Why Your Feelings Matter. This compilation seeks to shed light on a topic that has become a contentious political issue. Too often feelings are weaponized in political discourse, leading to increased legislative control by the left and intensified criticisms and marginalization by the right. Consequently, feelings and those who express them have been unjustly vilified by both sides. One side employs them as shields for their machinations, while the other mistakenly targets these shields, viewing them incorrectly as the adversary. I hold the conviction that feelings are a uniquely human attribute, so distinctive that I would venture to say, I feel, therefore I am human. In an era increasingly dominated by AI and automation, my hope is that this philosophical exploration will inspire you to appreciate an aspect of your existence that you might have previously overlooked. May it encourage you to embrace your humanity more fully and distance yourself from the mechanistic tendencies we are being asked to embody. To initiate our discussion, I would like to clarify the distinction between feelings and emotions, terms often used interchangeably yet represent different aspects of our inner lives. Commonly, we encounter generalizations such as men criticizing women for being all about their feelings, or women pointing out men's apparent lack of sensitivity. This reflects a misunderstanding in our everyday interactions, where we assume we're discussing the same concept yet we're not. Let's delve into this. A highly emotional individual might be paradoxically internally numb and disconnected from their surroundings, thus very insensitive. Conversely, someone who experiences deep feelings and is highly sensitive might be the most reserved and unassuming individual you encounter, seemingly impervious to external influences. Sensitivity and the capacity to feel are internal experiences, invisible to an external observer and entirely unique to each individual. They are profoundly human experiences that only the person feeling them can truly comprehend. In the earlier example, the man might indeed be highly sensitive, but not overtly emotional, while the woman could be intensely emotional, yet not particularly sensitive, or vice versa. Emotionality often manifests as the outward expression of feelings, necessitating an observer or listener to witness these emotions. This display can sometimes serve as a means of control or manipulation, potentially being entirely separate from genuine feelings. It's worth noting that people may express their emotionality in solitude, such as punching a wall or yelling into a pillow. These private expressions are arguably more appropriate outlets than directing such emotions toward another person. It's more prevalent, however, that people exhibit a blend of both emotionality and sensitivity, with these aspects frequently overlapping and even influencing each other. For example, emotionality can sometimes stem from unresolved feelings, often attributing to external factors what is essentially an internal issue. Consider this personal anecdote. My son regularly faced challenges with math and would turn to me for assistance. When he struggled to grasp the concept, he would become visibly upset, directing his anger towards me, the test, or the specific question. These kinds of conflicts reminded me of wisdom I once heard from Mr. Rogers, who once said, "The best way to be a good parent is to never forget what it was like to be a child." Observing my son's reaction reminded me of my own childhood frustrations when my mother attempted to teach me. This led me to introspect, asking myself, what was I feeling back then? The realization dawned on me that feelings of stupidity, worthlessness, and incapacity clouded my young mind. These overwhelming feelings, being too painful to confront, were conveniently covered up with frustration towards something external. The complexity of our emotional landscape is profound, as the emotions we express often mask deeper, preceding feelings. I refer to this as the feeling before the feeling, or alternatively, the feeling before the emotion. Outbursts of emotionality can be likened to the emissions of a car, the visible and audible byproducts of internal processes. These reactions are often coping mechanisms or self-devised narratives that help us evade confronting the true, underlying feelings within us, be they of worthlessness, inadequacy, or something else. This underscores the critical importance of connecting with our feelings. It's the uncovered feelings that pose the real challenge, not the emotions themselves. These unaddressed feelings often get buried deep within us, like seeds, only to sprout later on in life as vivid and volatile displays of anger or frustration. While assisting my son in navigating his frustration, I encouraged him to embrace self-compassion. I reassured him that needing extra time to understand the new concepts is entirely normal and acceptable. I highlighted that expecting instant expertise in an unfamiliar subject is unrealistic. Simultaneously, I aimed to dispel any self-deprecating thoughts he might have been harboring at that moment. This situation further strengthened my conviction that traditional educational methods frequently clash with the innate process of learning, and why I feel blessed to be able to homeschool my children. On this journey, it's crucial to recognize that emotions may only bear a superficial connection to the underlying feelings. Embracing our true feelings, despite the discomfort in acknowledging them, is essential. This self-awareness prevents our emotions from leading us astray, hindering our ability to address real issues effectively. Yet the complexity of this journey doesn't stop there. What inspired me to articulate these thoughts was an experience from 4 years ago, during my relentless efforts to comfort my then 1-week-old child. Her cries, stemming from unclear needs, would often escalate into emotional turmoil, marked by spells of anger and sadness. Notably, even when she was evidently hungry, she would reject her mother's milk, as her emotional state clouded her ability to accept nourishment. In her case, the basic feeling of hunger was overshadowed by the overwhelming emotion of rage. This rage transformed those who sought to help her into perceived adversaries, leading to their rejection and dismissal. It was at this moment I realized that our emotions will even distort our perceptions of reality, acting like volume controls for various emotional frequencies and perceptions. For example, if we are in a state of anxiety, our eyes become a magnifying glass for anything in our environment potentially anxiety-inducing. Similarly, a state of fear intensifies any element in our environment that might be perceived as frightening. Therefore, our emotional state can significantly color the lens through which we view the world. This distortion often occurs because we resist acknowledging the initial feeling, the true source of our discomfort, by denying this source. We avoid taking responsibility and acknowledging that the root of our problems lies within us, not outside. However, fear, being such a prevalent and innate feeling in childhood, makes it imperative that a parent do everything he or she can to instill a sense of profound, abiding safety for those first few years of life. For growing up in a state of fear will make every little shadow appear as a ghost, and every dark corner as harboring a monster. Living in this state for extended periods of time will inevitably create trauma, even though nothing traumatic actually took place. I often reflect on Ayn Rand's dismissal of emotions, notably her assertion that emotions are not tools of cognition, a perspective widely embraced by conservative thinkers. However, my personal experiences have led me to a more nuanced understanding. Emotions, I've come to realize, are mirrors of our internal state. When we delve deeply into them, they can guide us on a journey of enhanced cognition, far beyond what we might have achieved by simply disregarding them. In fairness to Rand, another important distinction must be made in the realm of feelings and emotions, and that is the difference between those that are genuine, manufactured, or imagined. Recognizing the potent influence of emotions, society has developed numerous ways to evoke or fabricate feelings in others. We often employ external stimuli, such as stories or life events, to intensify emotions like anxiety or fear, all of which adds another wrinkle to this dilemma. Let me explain. Consider how a film or a major national event can trigger emotional responses. Despite the narrative being fictional or remote, it can stir genuine emotions like sadness, joy, or inspiration. In certain cases, a single narrative has the power to mobilize an entire nation towards war or protest, demonstrating the profound influence external events can exert on our internal emotional landscape and collective behavior. These examples highlight how emotions can be both naturally arising and deliberately manufactured. To summarize our exploration so far before proceeding, first, we need to identify the underlying feeling beneath the emotion, while questioning the extent to which this feeling is naturally occurring or artificially induced. Additionally, if the emotion is innate, we should consider whether it stems more from an internal state or is influenced by external circumstances, in particular those we can control. Crucially, If we neglect this introspective process, we risk becoming emotionally numb in a world that increasingly preys on our emotions. Failing to discern between emergent and manufactured feelings leaves us vulnerable to manipulation, making it imperative to cultivate self-awareness and emotional intelligence so that our sensitivities can remain intact. I argue that it is best to become more sensitive, not less. It's this level of deep introspection that is vital when grappling with complex issues such as depression or what are commonly termed personality disorders. By delving into our innermost selves, we can unearth the fundamental causes of our emotional disturbances, a process I liken to interpreting dreams. The prevailing approach to treating conditions like depression and anxiety tends to focus solely on alleviating symptoms. This approach often hinders individuals from confronting deeper emotional challenges. While depression can be an exhausting state, leaving us feeling depleted, enduring this state can act as a beacon, guiding us to the underlying feeling at its core. It's akin to standing in a riverbed that has suddenly gone dry beneath your feet, now seeing objects long buried beneath the water. In this analogy, depression is like a fever accompanying the flu. It's our mind's desperate attempt to highlight what we have long neglected. In such a state, with our emotional responses amplified to their highest, the pain points in our lives are laid bare. It is within this daunting landscape that we can begin to overturn stones and excavate further, if necessary, to uncover the true origin of our sadness. In this context, feelings of sadness or anxiety can serve as signals, drawing our attention to aspects of our lives we may have overlooked. These seemingly minor issues could have been eroding our well-being gradually over time. It's not uncommon for such emotions to drive individuals away from their social circles, leading them into solitude. However, this solitude is often necessary. It's crucial to isolate oneself from external distractions, as the presence of others can significantly disrupt this journey of self-discovery. This interference can stem from their lack of understanding or wisdom, or from our own tendency to project our emotional state onto others. In doing so, we inadvertently transform these individuals into reflections of our own psyche's reluctance to confront certain uncomfortable truths, and use them as tools to reinforce our coping strategies. So what comes next? Suppose you've embraced solitude, engaged in deep introspection, and succeeded in uncovering the feeling before the emotion. Perhaps even discovering the deeper underlying feeling, whether it's innate or instilled. Imagine if this feeling is a solitary thought hidden in the dark recesses of your mind, like my own realization of feeling stupid during my struggles in school. When you've delved this deeply, encountering such a raw internal belief, what do you do with it? In my experience, an effective strategy for the complete podcast, find it free of charge on clearpillphilosophy.com. If you find this content valuable, please consider leaving a donation while you're there.